They laughed the moment I told them I was quitting. They said I was crazy, but they didn't know I was already out of options. I'm Alexandria, 28 years old, and just weeks ago, my life was turned upside down by a single phone call. The company I'd dedicated years to me steady paycheck. My sense of security collapsed overnight. Suddenly, I was drowning in debt, lost in a city that never sleeps, with nothing but a fragile dream and a fierce determination to survive. The laughter? It wasn't just disbelief, it was the sound of every fear I carried inside echoing back at me. "Why throw away what you have for what you might never get?" my mother whispered through tears. My father's silence was louder than any words, and even my friends looked at me like I was throwing myself off a cliff. But I wasn't afraid to fall, because I knew deep down that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. That night, I sat alone in my cramped apartment, the city lights flickering through the window, my resignation letter clenched in shaking hands. The world outside moved fast and unforgiving, but inside me, a fire was just beginning to burn. This was no longer just about a job, it was about reclaiming my life from the ashes of failure. The weeks that followed tested every ounce of my strength. Sleepless nights, rejection after rejection, and the crushing loneliness of building something from nothing. Tears fell quietly, but so did resolve grow stronger. Each no was a spark, each setback a step forward. I wiped away my tears and whispered, "This isn't the end. It's only the beginning." Now, standing at the edge of the unknown, I ask myself, will this fire survive the storm? Or will it be snuffed out by doubt? The answer is mine to write. This is my story. The night the final rejection came, I wasn't just crushed, I was shattered. The email blinked on my screen like a death sentence. "We regret to inform you that your proposal has been declined." Every word sliced through me, leaving wounds deeper than I expected. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of broken dreams, the weight of failure suffocating my very breath. My phone buzzed again, a message from someone I once called a friend. "You were foolish to think you could make it. Maybe it's time to face reality." The words hit harder than any blow. Betrayal. Not from strangers, but from those I trusted most. The walls of my tiny apartment seemed to close in, the cold air biting into my skin like shards of glass. I collapsed to the floor, my body shaking with sobs I could no longer hold back. The fierce fire inside me threatened to extinguish under the flood of despair. I screamed into the silence, the sound raw and desperate. Why me? Why now? What have I done wrong? But in that screaming darkness, a spark remained, flickering, fragile, but stubborn. It reminded me of every late night I'd spent dreaming, every risk I'd taken, every small victory I'd won against impossible odds. Suddenly, the door slammed open. It was her, my mentor, the woman whose strength had always seemed untouchable. Her eyes blazed with a fierce light as she stepped inside, closing the door with a determined click. "You're not done," she said, her voice a battle cry. "This storm will pass, but only if you fight through it." Her words pierced the fog of despair. She didn't offer empty comfort, she offered truth. That in the depths of failure, we find our real selves. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but the choice to rise despite it. She handed me a worn notebook, her journal from years ago, filled with stories of ruin and rebirth. I flipped through the pages, each word a lifeline thrown to me from the past. Stories of falling apart, losing everything, and somehow building a new life from the ashes. Inspired, I wiped my tears and stood up. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. Days blurred into nights as I poured every ounce of strength into my dream. I faced ruthless self-doubt, financial strain, and the painful silence of those who abandoned me. But I also found unexpected allies, strangers who believed, moments of unexpected kindness, and a growing community that lifted me when I faltered. One evening, exhausted beyond words, I sat by my window watching the rain wash the city streets. I thought about the girl I was scared, broken, and desperate. And I whispered a promise. You will survive. You will thrive. You will rise. That night, I wrote a letter to myself, raw, honest, and unfiltered. A vow to never surrender, to fight for every inch of the future I wanted. That letter became my anchor in the storm. Now, as I prepare to take the next step, I know the road ahead will be even harder. But I also know this: the fire inside me is not just alive, it's burning brighter than ever. And this time, nothing will snuff it out. If you're watching this and feeling lost or defeated, know this: your story isn't over. The darkest moments often come just before the dawn. Find your spark, hold on to it, and fight like your life depends on it, because it does. This is my journey. The battle scars are real, the victories hard-earned, and the hope fierce. And I'm inviting you to rise with me. The moment I discovered the betrayal, the world I had painstakingly built began to crumble. It wasn't just a broken promise, it was a knife twisted deep in my back by someone I had trusted. The sting burned hotter than any rejection email, leaving me gasping for breath in a storm of disbelief and fury. That evening, I confronted them. The air was thick with tension, words sharp as shattered glass. "Why?" I demanded, voice trembling but fierce. "How could you do this after everything we promised each other?" Their eyes darted away, cold and unrepentant. "This is business," they sneered. "And in business, trust is a luxury few can afford." The room seemed to close in, suffocating. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the foundation of my dreams shaking violently. But beneath the shock, something else ignited a blazing inferno of rage and resolve. I wasn't a victim. I was a warrior. I stormed out into the night, the city lights blurring through my tears. The rain fell like a baptism, washing away the betrayal but fueling the fire inside. Every drop was a promise. I would rise, no matter the cost. Alone on a rain-soaked street, I screamed not just in pain but in defiance. "You don't get to break me." That night marked a turning point. I vowed to reclaim everything, to build not just a business, but an empire forged from my scars and my unyielding will. Days bled into nights as I strategized with relentless focus. I hunted for allies, forged new partnerships, and dismantled every obstacle with fierce determination. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy me became the fuel powering my ascent. There were moments of doubt, yes, moments when the weight seemed unbearable. But I remembered my scream in the rain, my promise to myself. That scream echoed in every challenge I faced, reminding me that true strength comes from rising after the fall. And rise I did. Now, standing on the cusp of a breakthrough, I look back not with bitterness, but with pride. The fire inside me has become a roaring blaze, lighting the path forward. If you're battling your own betrayals, your own storms, know this: the fiercest warriors are forged in the hottest fires. Let your pain ignite your power. Fight with everything you have. This is no longer just my story, it's our battle cry. The morning after that storm had passed, I woke up with a pounding heart and a mind on fire. The rain had washed the streets clean, but inside me, a fierce battle was just beginning. I was no longer the girl who crumbled in silence. I was a force unleashed, raw and relentless. With every breath, I made a vow to take back control, to turn betrayal into power, and to rise higher than I ever dreamed possible. But the path wasn't clear or easy. The world outside was still cold and unforgiving, full of shadows waiting to pull me under. I dove headfirst into the chaos of rebuilding. My days became a whirlwind of frantic meetings, relentless networking, and sleepless nights spent drafting plans that danced between hope and desperation. Every rejection felt like a slap, every doubt a weight pressing down. But my fire refused to die. Then came the first real breakthrough, a call from an unexpected ally. Someone who saw past the scars and believed in the strength burning inside me. That call was a lifeline, a spark that ignited a wildfire of possibilities. It reminded me that even in the darkest storms, light can find its way through. The fight was far from over. Competition grew fierce. Whispered rumors began to spread, trying to tarnish my reputation, to shake the foundation I was rebuilding. A rival who once smiled in my face now plotted in shadows, eager to see me fall. Every step forward was met with new obstacles, each more daunting than the last. I faced moments when the weight of the world threatened to crush me, when exhaustion blurred the line between fight and flight. when the loneliness wrapped itself around my soul like a cold, unyielding shroud. But in those moments, I found strength in the fire that refused to be extinguished. I reminded myself of every scar, every tear, every scream in the rain. I wasn't just fighting for a business, I was fighting for my life, my identity, my freedom. One night, standing alone on the rooftop of my apartment, the city sprawled beneath me like a battlefield. I shouted into the night sky, my voice raw and defiant. I will not be broken. I will rise. And I will conquer. The wind carried my vow into the darkness, and in that moment, I knew it was true. I am more than the sum of my failures. I am a storm, a wildfire, a force unstoppable. If you're standing at the edge, battered but unbowed, hear this. Your fight matters. Your scars are your strength. Your voice is your power. Rise. Fight. Believe. This is not just my story, it is ours. And the best is yet to come. The battlefield was set, but this was no ordinary fight. It was a war waged in shadows and whispers, in boardrooms and behind closed doors. My rival had unleashed every weapon she had: rumors, sabotage, and relentless pressure designed to break me. The air around me thickened with tension, each day a test of endurance and will. One evening, I found myself alone in my office, the weight of the world pressing down like a crushing tide. The city lights flickered through the window, but inside, darkness clawed at my soul. A sudden knock on the door shattered the silence. It was her, the very person I never expected to see again, the one I thought had turned her back on me. Her eyes were sharp, but there was a flicker of something else: regret, fear. She stepped inside without hesitation, closing the door behind her. "I didn't come here to fight," she said, voice low but steady. "I came because I see the fire in you, the fire I once had, before I lost my way." The confession stunned me. For a moment, the walls I'd built trembled. Could trust be rebuilt from ashes? Could an enemy become an ally? We talked through the night, raw, honest, and unfiltered. She revealed the pressures she faced, the compromises she made, and the path that led her here. And in her story, I saw fragments of my own struggle mirrored back. That night, something shifted. A fragile alliance was forged, not from ease, but from shared pain and fierce determination. Together, we mapped out a plan, one that would turn the tide and redefine the rules of the game. But the battle was far from over. The stakes soared higher. Threats came in veiled forms: a whispered warning, a sudden withdrawal of support, an unexpected legal challenge that threatened to undo everything. Every step forward demanded courage beyond what I thought I possessed. Yet, with this new alliance, I found strength in numbers and purpose in unity. We pushed back against the storm, each victory a beacon in the tempest. In the heart of the struggle, I found clarity. I wasn't just fighting to survive. I was fighting to reclaim my power, my voice, my destiny. And in that fight, I discovered the truest strength, not in standing alone, but in standing together. If you are caught in your own battles, know this: even in the fiercest storms, there is power in connection, in forgiveness, and in the courage to rewrite your story. This is my story, one of fire, fury, and unbreakable will. And the war has only just begun. The alliance forged in fire was tested almost immediately. No sooner had we begun to push back against the mounting forces that threatened to crush us than the real war began, the one that tore at the heart and soul. Every victory came at a cost. Every step forward shadowed by whispers of doubt and betrayal lurking just beyond sight. One cold, unforgiving morning, I arrived at the office to find the doors barred. A legal notice taped to the glass, an injunction, filed by a faceless adversary, freezing everything I had fought so hard to build. My heart slammed against my ribs like a prisoner desperate for escape. The weight of years, of dreams and sweat and sleepless nights, suddenly threatened to crush me. But this time, I did not crumble. My partner stood beside me, fierce and unyielding. "They want to stop us," she said, eyes blazing with determination. "But we'll show them what we're made of." We rallied our allies, drafting countermeasures, mobilizing support. Days bled into nights, strategies unfolded, and battles were waged not with fists but with will and wit. Every meeting was a battlefield, every email a volley. The fight was relentless, and so was I. There were moments when exhaustion pulled me to the brink, when the phone rang with bad news again and again, when the isolation whispered that I was alone, that the mountain was too steep, the climb impossible. Yet, in those darkest moments, I found something unexpected. A quiet strength, born from pain and perseverance. I remembered every tear shed in silence, every scream stifled in the dark. I clung to the fire inside a fire no legal paper, no rumor, no shadow could extinguish. And then, in the midst of the storm, came the breakthrough hard-won and glorious. A key ally stepped forward, lending credibility and resources that shifted the balance. The injunction was challenged, the walls began to crumble. With it, my spirit soared. I realized then that true power isn't in never falling, but in rising every time we do. That strength is forged in the furnace of adversity, tempered by the resolve to never give up. Standing on the edge of this hard-fought victory, I looked back not with bitterness or regret, but with pride. Every scar was a testament to my journey, every battle a story of courage. If you are fighting your own battles, weighed down by setbacks and shadows, know this. You carry a fire inside that no darkness can consume. Hold fast to it. Fight with everything you have. Rise. This is my story, one of relentless battle, fierce heart, and unbreakable spirit. And the fight is far from over. The dawn broke cold and clear, casting long shadows over a city that had witnessed my darkest nights and fiercest battles. Standing on the rooftop of my office building, I gazed out at the horizon, a vast expanse of possibility stretching beyond the skyline. The war I had fought, the scars I bore, all converged into this moment. A fragile victory, a hard-earned peace. But peace was not surrender. It was the fuel for a new fire, fiercer, brighter, and more unyielding than before. Behind me, the echo of footsteps approached. My partner, battle-worn but unbroken, joined me. "We've come far," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But this is just the beginning." Together, we looked back at the path, the betrayals that threatened to consume us, the nights soaked with tears, the endless fight against shadows that lurked at every turn. Each trial had forged us, shaped us into warriors of our own destiny. Then, the unexpected message arrived on my phone. It was from someone I had once counted out, a rival turned reluctant admirer. "You changed the game," the text read. "You showed us all what real strength looks like." A smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. This wasn't just my victory, it was a revolution. But the true triumph was deeper than success or recognition. It was the reclaiming of my voice, the shedding of fear, the freedom to be unapologetically myself. I remembered the girl who once hid in shadows, silenced by doubt and pain. Today, she stood tall, unshaken by storms, and ready to light the way for others lost in the dark. I turned to the city lights, whispering a promise to keep fighting, to keep dreaming, and to keep rising. To everyone watching, struggling in their own battles, hear this. Your story is not defined by the falls, but by the courage to rise again. The fire inside you is your greatest weapon. Nurture it, protect it, and let it blaze a trail no darkness can follow. This is my story. Our story. A story of fire, fury, and unbreakable will. And though this chapter closes, our journey continues. Before we part ways today, I want to thank each of you who have been here, with me listening, feeling, and fighting alongside. Your support means everything. If this story has touched you, inspired you, or sparked something inside, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more journeys like this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of this story resonated most with you? Have you ever faced a moment when you had to rise from the ashes? Drop your story or thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a community of strength and hope together. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you are never alone. Keep the fire burning. Keep rising. Thank you for being part of this story.